So I've said this a few times throughout the last few years. I'm tired. I'm emotionally tired. I'm mentally tired. I'm physically tired. And I share this because I know that I am not unique. If I am feeling a certain way, I'm sure that some of you are coming here to church today and joining us on Zoom and are feeling the same way. And we need a place to come to not feel alone, to be renewed, to find hope again. And one of the reasons I'm tired is because I care. I care what is happening in this country. I care what is happening in this world, and I care what is happening here in this valley with all of us. And when we care, sometimes we can get attached to results. When we get attached to results, we can become discouraged when those results are not the outcome we're hoping for. I certainly know that the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her rushed and forced through nomination in the course of a week is certainly not a result I was hoping for. For some in our country, that is exactly the result they were hoping for. And in fact, it was for this very reason that many Americans will argue that they voted for the president we currently have in the first place. Nothing mattered except choosing a president who would be able and willing to choose the correct Supreme Court replacements. In this respect, it appears that for millions of people, the end has justified their means. We are a culture that revolves around end results. We've all heard the phrases, start with the end in mind, live a purpose-driven life. What is the end goal? Keep your eyes on the prize. We create vision boards. Look to the finish line. This is how our country works. We are a results-oriented culture. How many pounds do you want to lose? How many items do you need to sell by the end of the month? How many steps must you get in by the end of the day? Which college do you want to get into? We are a people who have been socialized to live our lives with the end goal in mind for almost everything we do. And if we look at everything as an end, then it doesn't take much of a leap to determine that the end must justify the means. The end goal becomes everything. It doesn't matter if I starve myself, I have to fit into that dress before the reunion. It doesn't matter if I fudge a little bit on my timesheet, I have to get those hours in. It doesn't matter if I cheat on my SATs, I must do what I need to do to get accepted into that school. It doesn't matter if I call that ball out even though it was just on the line. I need this game to win the set. It doesn't matter if our children know how to think critically and logically, as long as they mark the right answer on the standardized test so that the school will achieve the right score to receive more funding. It doesn't matter if 200,000 people die. I have to win this re-election. It doesn't matter who I vote for, as long as the person I vote for will fill the Supreme Court in the correct way. The end becomes the goal, and it becomes an at all cost type of proposition. And this is the world we live in today. I've been thinking deeply about this over the past few years. We are at a time in our history when I do believe that our voices must be heard, that we must continue to show up and speak up. But to what end? Why must I speak up? What am I trying to achieve with my posts on Facebook and these sermons? I know what my ends are right now. I want those children out of the cages and back with their families. I want my LGBTQ friends and neighbors to be respected and their marriages continued to be acknowledged. I want my Black friends and neighbors to feel safe in our parks and asleep in their own homes at night. I want my Latino friends and neighbors to be an integral and valued part of our society. It would be nice if we didn't have people who find themselves homeless due to mental health reasons getting the compassionate help that they need so that they don't have to look for safety on top of our church roof. Those are my ends. But what are the means by which I go about achieving them? How do we get there? We are watching what is happening with other people in our country, and their ends were a bit different. And some of our neighbors and friends and some family are actually achieving their ends right now. But let's look at some of those means. Cheating, lying, hate, intimidation. Right now, those tactics do seem to be working. I will give them that. But is that what we want? And is that who we are? Is it possible that our collective paradigm of the ends justifying the means at any cost is leading us down the wrong path? The wisdom of the ages collectively passed on and shared again and again have a similar message and theme. When we ignore our means for the ends we seek, we will never get the ends we are hoping for. It may appear that way in the short term, but in the long run, it rarely works out for the protagonists in most wisdom stories. If we seek to have a kinder, more compassionate, and just society, we aren't going to get there with political manipulation, gerrymandering, and lying. And even if we get the right people into office, have we become part of the problem if we have cheated and lied to get there? And does that make it okay? For many election cycles now, both sides to some extent have decided that deceit is okay as long as we can take back the House or get the Supreme Court or whatever that end goal is in whichever decade we're living in. But I think it's becoming pretty clear that that strategy isn't working for us anymore as a society. And maybe we need a new way. Mahatma Gandhi said, "The true measure of any society can be found in how it treats our most vulnerable members." One of my spiritual mentors, Dimitri, modified those words in this way. He says, "Judge a society by how it treats the most vulnerable in the population, and you will see the spiritual maturity of the society." And I'm thinking that what we are demonstrating right now in the United States of America is not the most spiritually mature society we have ever seen. And our faith traditions certainly don't advocate for the ends justifying the means at any cost. Matthew, the book of Matthew in the Bible says, "For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul?" Another translation says, "What shall a man give in exchange for his soul? By their fruits you shall know them." Gandhi was a Hindu, and he was a strong proponent for a different way of thinking about this. I remember taking a class in college about Gandhi and how deeply he believed that the means must be the focus rather than the end. In an article titled "Means and Ends in Politics," Ragahan N. Iyer writes of Gandhi, quote, "He was convinced that an intense concentration on the task at hand can and must be combined with a degree of detachment, of freedom from anxiety about the future consequences. If we are sure of the purity of the means we employ, we shall be led on by faith, before which all fear and trembling melt away." And I'm going to repeat that. A freedom from anxiety about the future consequences. If we are sure of the purity of the means we employ, compassion, truth, gratitude, love, kindness, all fear and trembling will melt away. In other words, according to Gandhi, if you can assure yourself that your behavior is in alignment with your highest spiritual principles you hold, the ends will take care of themselves. If my every action and every word is one rooted in compassion, truth, and kindness, the outcome I will necessarily create will be of value. He says, "The progress towards the goal will be in exact proportion to the purity of the means. They say means are, after all, means. I would say," says Gandhi, "means are, after all, everything. As the means, so the end." It is not the end that we can work with, but only means. Different means will lead to different ends. This is not to say that both violence and nonviolence cannot both lead to the independence of a country, but that the country thus created will be one based on violence if the means are violent, and pacific if the means are nonviolent. He ends with saying, "Violence and nonviolence cannot be different means to secure the same end, since they are morally different in quality and essence. They must necessarily achieve different results." And so, keeping this in mind, I have been asking myself before every action this year, what are my means? Is my behavior in alignment with the goal I'm hoping to see? Is my end goal based on compassion or anger? And then I check in with myself. Is this action I am about to engage in alignment with the emotions of love and compassion, or anger and resentment? If it is the latter, I take some space to enter into a different state of mind. The activity might be the same. I still show up at the rallies and the protests, but I am intentional with the emotional motivation I bring with me. I show up because I choose to align with compassion and support for Breonna Taylor. not anger and revenge against the police. It's about how we are being when we show up that I believe will eventually create the outcome that we want. So am I contributing to the problem by sending out angry words and energy? Or are my Facebook posts and my sermons, while naming my truth, in alignment with noble means? I think that engaging in this self-reflection before we act is where at least I am choosing to put my energy and focus this year. And this method may feel like the longer, windier road in the short term, but I believe it is the only path that will eventually take us where we want to go. In the last few years, and especially in 2020, I have seen so many people who are beginning to do deep soul searching about what they believe, why they believe it, and what they are willing to do or not do to be in alignment with their deepest truth. And I think this is a good sign. We must change ourselves internally before we're going to see any external results. A rotten tree produces rotten fruit. And I know that many of us are feeling somewhat pessimistic and hopeless as we watch what is going on in our country. Somebody texted me this weekend and asked, why is the left so powerless? What I hold on to are the larger spiritual principles and the wisdom passed along to us throughout the ages that might does not make right, that by their fruits you shall recognize them, that never in the history of the world has anger, hate, lying, and cheating ever achieved the long-term solution for enduring peace. These next 6 weeks and even the next few months or years may indeed feel scary or hopeless, and it may appear that anger, lies, fear, and hate at times is winning. When we see it show up in the form of four-wheel trucks and camouflaged white men with their guns on North Avenue and showing up at our city council meetings. Those are their means. But to what end? I choose to hold to the principles that have been tried and tested throughout the ages. Faith, hope, love, and the strongest of these is love. So I end today with a familiar Bible verse for many of us, 13 Corinthians. If I speak in the tongues of men or angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give my body over to hardship, that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became grown, I put the ways of childhood behind me. I reasoned, for now we see only a reflection as in a mirror, and then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three things remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Love will guide us.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us.